The first thing Hannah Reed said after reading my resume was, "I don't need an employee, I need a husband." I stared at her across a counter buried under break invoices, school permission slips, and 3 coffee cups that looked like they had been reheated more than once. Behind her, a little girl slept curled up on a vinyl bench with a purple backpack under her head. Through the open bay doors, an impact wrench screamed, and somebody swore at a rusted exhaust bolt. "I'm pretty sure your sign said service manager," I said. "It did. And now the position is husband?" Hannah rubbed both hands over her face. Forget I said that. I should have. Instead, that sentence became the beginning of the strangest job interview and the most important year of my life. Before I tell you how I nearly walked out and ended up staying, tell me where you're listening from. And if you like stories about people who get a second chance only after they stop trying to control the outcome, you're in the right place. My name is Luke Carter. I was 32 years old that summer, a certified automotive technician who had spent the previous 8 years working my way from a dealership service bay in Charlotte to assistant service manager. I had also spent the previous 3 months unemployed, living out of 2 duffel bags and trying not to call my former fiancée after she made it very clear that our engagement was over. She said I had a habit of turning every relationship into a repair order, find the problem, diagnose it, fix it, move on. At the time, I thought that was unfair. Later, I realized she had been right. I found Reed Auto and Tire outside Hendersonville, North Carolina, because of a crooked plywood sign zip-tied to a fence. Experienced tech, service manager needed. Start yesterday. The start yesterday part felt honest. The shop itself looked like a place fighting hard not to die. 2 bays. 1 aging alignment rack. A tire machine old enough to vote. 6 customer cars squeezed into a gravel lot meant for 4. The office had a window air conditioner rattling so violently I expected it to leave the wall. And behind the counter stood Hannah Reed. She was 28, though I didn't know that yet. Dark hair twisted up with a pencil, grease across one cheek, gray shop shirt with Reed stitched over the pocket. No makeup that I could see. No time for it either. She had the exhausted focus of someone who had been solving problems since before sunrise and had already been handed 3 more. She glanced toward the sleeping girl on the bench, then back at me. "I'm sorry," she said. "That husband thing was a terrible joke. It wasn't your best opening." "No." She let out a breath. "What I meant is I need someone who can run the front when I'm in a bay, diagnose when Tyler gets stuck, order parts, close up if school calls, deal with customers who think the owner must be a man and somehow stop the phone from ringing while I'm already on the phone. That still sounds like an employee. It sounds like 3 employees, then hire 3. With what money?" That was the first honest answer she gave me. I picked up my resume. "Thanks for your time." Her eyebrows lifted. "You're leaving?" "You just told me the shop needs 3 people and can afford 1. "I'm good, Ms. Reed. I'm not magic." I had made it halfway to the door when a man shouted from the parking lot. "Ma'am, something's leaking." Hannah moved before I did. The little girl on the bench woke with a start. Frn. A 10-year-old Ford Explorer had just pulled in, steam rolling from under the hood. The driver, an older man in a fishing cap, started to lift the hood. "Don't," I called. He froze. I stepped outside, crouched near the grill, and saw bright green coolant pouring down behind the radiator support. But that wasn't what caught my eye. The electric fan assembly was hanging crooked, one upper mount broken, the fan blades wobbling inches from the radiator hose. "Kill the engine," I said. The man did. Hannah came beside me. She saw it, too. "If that fan cuts the hose while he's standing over it," she said, "he gets sprayed with pressurized coolant." She looked at me for 1 second. then at the customer. "Sir, leave it off. We'll push it into Bay 2. 10 minutes later, Tyler, the shop's only other full-time technician, was guiding the Explorer onto the lift while Hannah wrote down the customer's number. She turned to me. 30-day trial. I laughed once. That wasn't an interview. It was better than an interview. "What's the pay?" She named a number lower than I had made at the dealership, but higher than I expected from a 2-bay independent shop. 40 hours? I asked. "Probably 50. "That's not how 40 works." "I know." I looked at the sleeping bench, the ringing phone, the Explorer dripping into a catch pan, and Hannah holding a pen between her teeth while she searched for a blank work order. Then I did this thing I had promised myself I wouldn't do anymore. I saw a mess and wanted to fix it. 30 days, I said. "After that, either of us can walk." Hannah pulled the pen from her mouth. Agreed. And no more husband jokes. She gave me the first hint of a smile. "You're the one who keeps bringing it up." My first Monday began at 7 a.m., with a customer asking why her Honda was still outside after she had dropped it off Friday. Hannah looked at the key rack. Tyler looked at the floor. I looked at the work orders. There wasn't one. That was the system. By 7:12, I understood why Hannah had sounded half delirious during my interview. Her father, Daniel Reed, had started the shop 26 years earlier. He had run almost everything from memory. Customers called him directly. Parts vendors texted him. Regulars dropped keys through the mail slot with notes like "same noise as last time." Then Daniel died of a heart attack 18 months before I arrived. Hannah inherited the business, the building lease, the equipment loan, her father's customers, his unfinished paperwork, and every expectation he had spent 26 years creating. She also had a 7-year-old daughter named Maisie. Maisie's father lived 2 states away and appeared in her life according to promises he rarely kept. Hannah did the wrenching her father had taught her to do. Tyler handled tires and basic repair. A retired bookkeeper came in 6 hours a week. Everything else landed on Hannah. The first thing I changed wasn't software. It wasn't branding. It wasn't the sign. It was a clipboard. Every car got one sheet. Customer name, phone number, complaint in the customer's own words, diagnostic approval, estimate approval, parts ordered, promise time, technician initials. Hannah watched me tape 6 labeled slots to the office wall. "Very advanced," she said. "Don't mock the technology. Should I call NASA?" "You can after we stop losing Hondas." By lunch, the missing work order had become a running joke. By Wednesday, it wasn't a joke anymore because we had stopped losing things. The strange part was how quickly Hannah and I learned each other's rhythms. She was faster with electrical diagnosis than anyone I had worked with. Give her an intermittent no start and a wiring diagram, and she became calm, almost peaceful. She could trace voltage drop like she was following a familiar trail. I was better at translating mechanics into language customers trusted, not sales language. Plain language. "You need this now. You can wait on that. This noise is annoying, not dangerous. This one is dangerous." At my old dealership, I had gotten in trouble for saying things exactly that way. One of the reasons I left was an elderly customer named Mr. Alvarez. He came in for a transmission shutter. The service director wanted me to sell him a full replacement for nearly $6,000. I pushed for a fluid service and software update first because the technical bulletin supported it. The cheaper fix worked. The service director called me disloyal to the department. I called him something less professional. 2 weeks later, I was gone. My fiancée, Brooke, had already been tired of me bringing work home in my head. Losing the job finished what the arguments had started. So when Hannah asked why a man with dealership management experience was answering her crooked, help wanted sign, I gave her the short version. I got tired of being paid to convince people fear was a service package. She studied me. That line rehearsed? No. Good. Rehearsed would have ruined it. During week 2, I found the certified letter. I wasn't snooping. It sat in the parts drawer under a stack of unopened vendor statements because somebody had shoved the morning mail wherever it fit. Final notice. The equipment lender was demanding $28,400 by September 15th to cure a balloon payment on the alignment rack, tire machine, and 2 lifts. If Hannah couldn't refinance or pay, they could repossess the equipment securing the note. Without the equipment, Reed Auto wasn't a shop. It was a waiting room with tools. I took the letter into Bay 1. Hannah was under a Subaru checking a wheel bearing. "Tell me this is old." She slid out on the creeper, saw the envelope in my hand, and closed her eyes. "That's not yours." It was in the parts drawer. I said it's not yours. I work here. You work here. You don't own here. The words hit harder than they should have. I handed her the letter. You hired me into a shop that might lose its lifts in 3 months. I hired you for 30 days. So your plan was what? Let me organize the work orders while the bank takes the alignment rack? It's not a bank. That really clears things up. She stood. The temperature in the bay seemed to rise 10 degrees. "I have been talking to lenders," she said. "I have been cutting expenses. I have been paying that note every month since my father died. The balloon clause was buried in a refinance he signed when he got sick and didn't tell me about. I found out after the funeral. I don't need you explaining the problem to me. I'm not explaining it. You're looking at me like you can solve it." I started to answer. She pointed the letter at me. "That. Exactly that." "What?" "That look. Like I'm a broken transmission and you just found the service bulletin." I went quiet. She had no idea how close she had landed to Brooke's exact complaint. Hannah's voice softened, but only slightly. "I need an employee, Luke. A good one. I do not need a rescuer." I stared at her. "Funny. First day you said husband. Worst joke of my life. No argument." She almost smiled, but didn't. I walked outside and sat on the low concrete wall near the air compressor. For 10 minutes, I considered leaving. Not because the shop was in trouble, because I could feel the old machinery inside me starting up. Be indispensable. Carry more than anyone asked. Make yourself necessary enough that nobody can leave. That had been my version of love for years. I went back inside and put the certified letter on Hannah's desk. "I'm not lending you money," I said. She blinked. "I didn't ask you to. I'm not calling lenders behind your back. I'm not making a rescue plan." "Okay. But I am going to do the job you hired me to do, and if I see a way for the shop to make more money, I'm going to tell you." She folded her arms. "That sounds suspiciously reasonable. I'm trying something new. That afternoon we made the first real plan together. Not to save the shop, just to make the next month better than the last. We stopped taking every job that rolled in. That sounds backward until you understand small repair shops. The wrong job can occupy a bay for 3 days, waiting on a part that earns you almost nothing, while 6 profitable jobs sit outside. We started booking diagnostics properly. We required approval before teardown. We called customers before noon instead of after 5. Hannah raised her labor rate by $8, then spent an hour worrying everyone would leave. Nobody did. In fact, more people came. What changed the business, though, was an idea that started because of a woman named Mrs. Dorsey. She was 71, drove a Buick with 48,000 miles, and arrived holding an estimate from a chain shop for $3,900. She was nearly in tears. They said if I drive it, the engine could lock up. Hannah read the estimate. I looked at the Buick. 40 minutes later, we found a leaking valve cover gasket, worn front brakes, and a cracked engine mount. Real repairs. Important repairs. Total estimate, $140. No engine replacement. No catastrophic failure. Mrs. Dorsey sat in the office with both hands around a paper cup of water. "How am I supposed to know who's telling the truth?" she asked. Hannah leaned against the counter. "You shouldn't have to become a mechanic to avoid being scared into buying something." The sentence stuck in my head. That Friday, I proposed a Saturday clinic. "No selling," I said. "Just teach people what warning lights mean, how to check oil, what bad brakes sound like, how to read an estimate, what questions to ask." Hannah stared at me. "You want to spend Saturday teaching customers how not to need us? I want to spend Saturday teaching them how to know when they do." Tyler, from the doorway, said, "That's annoyingly good." Hannah looked at the September notice pinned face down under her desk blotter. "How much? Coffee? Donuts? 3 hours. And if nobody comes? We eat donuts." Maisie raised her hand from the corner. "I'll come." Hannah sighed. "Fine." 23 people showed up. Most were women. A few were older men who admitted, quietly, that modern cars made them feel like beginners. One retired teacher brought a notebook. Mrs. Dorsey brought 2 friends and introduced Hannah like she was a surgeon who had saved her life. Hannah stood beside a cutaway brake rotor and explained pad wear without talking down to anyone. I watched her confidence change the room. She wasn't trying to prove a woman could own an auto shop. She was just owning an auto shop. There was a difference. A local neighborhood reporter took photos for the community paper. Someone posted a video of Hannah explaining the difference between a check engine light and an oil pressure light. By Monday, the clip had been shared a few thousand times locally. By Wednesday, we were booked 9 days out. The revenue helped. But more than that, the shop started becoming known for something Daniel Reed had practiced instinctively and Hannah had never put into words. No fear, no pressure, no mystery. I printed those 3 phrases on plain paper and taped them behind the counter. Hannah read them. "You making us a motto? Temporary sign? It looks terrible. Then design a better one." She did. "That should tell you something about us. We fought over everything useful. We never fought over whether the work mattered." The next few months settled into a rhythm I didn't trust at first because it felt too good to be temporary. I arrived at 6:45. Hannah arrived at 6:30, even though I kept telling her owners were allowed to be late to their own businesses. Maisie spent summer mornings at a day camp and afternoons in the office. She built a cardboard parts department under Hannah's desk and charged Tyler imaginary money for lug nuts. Tyler promoted himself to regional manager of whatever keeps the kid busy. Hannah kept one photograph of her father above the parts shelf. In it, Daniel Reed was younger than I was, leaning against a faded red 1967 Ford pickup. The same truck sat under a canvas cover behind the shop. It had not run in 6 years. "That his?" I asked one evening. Hannah followed my eyes. "His favorite bad decision. Looks expensive." It was. "What's wrong with it? Everything." I smiled. "Technical term?" He tore it down to restore it. Then life happened. "You ever think about finishing it?" Her face closed. "No. I learned not to push. That was another new skill." The closest Hannah and I came to crossing the line happened in August. A thunderstorm knocked out power at 5:30. Tyler had already left. Maisie was at Hannah's mother's house. We stood in the dark office, lit by 2 phone flashlights, and watched rain hammer the parking lot. "You want a ride?" I asked. "My truck's here. You have 1 headlight out. I own a repair shop. You own a repair shop with no electricity." She leaned against the counter. "Luke? Yeah? Why didn't you get married?" The question was so direct, I almost laughed. "Was planning to. What happened?" I looked out at the rain. Brooke got tired of being managed. Hannah didn't speak. I continued because the dark made honesty easier. If she had a bad day, I tried to solve it. If she was worried, I made a plan. If she wanted to talk, I gave her options. I thought being useful was the same thing as being loving. And she didn't? She wanted me to listen. Dangerous request. Apparently. Hannah smiled. Then I asked, "What about Maisie's dad?" Her smile disappeared, not painfully. Just completely. Bryce liked being needed, she said. At first, I thought that was love. Then I realized he only liked helping if the help gave him a vote. I understood immediately. He wanted control, he wanted credit. Control came with it. She folded her arms. When Dad got sick, I spent more time here. Bryce said I was choosing the shop over our marriage. When Dad died, he gave me 2 months to sell this place and move with him to Atlanta. You said no. I said he could move to Atlanta. I looked at her. She shrugged. He did. And Maisie? He calls. He visits when it's convenient. She loves him. I try not to make that complicated for her. The power came back with a snap. Fluorescent lights buzzed overhead. For 1 second, neither of us moved. Then Hannah looked at the printed sign behind me. No fear, no pressure, no mystery. Your ugly motto survived, she said. Your design. My mistake. The moment passed. I was relieved. I was disappointed. Both things were true. 2 weeks later, the air compressor caught fire. Not a movie fire, no explosion, no flames racing across the ceiling. Just an electrical short. Smoke, one ugly burst of flame, and Tyler unloading an extinguisher while I killed the breaker. Nobody got hurt. But the compressor was dead. A section of wiring had to be replaced, and the county inspector closed both service bays until an electrician signed off. 4 days. 4 days without repair revenue. 4 days before the equipment lender's representative was scheduled to review Hannah's refinance request. She stood in the empty bay after the inspector left. White extinguisher dust coating the floor. I can't do this, she said. It was the first time I ever heard her say those words. I did not tell her she could. I did not make a plan. I asked, "Do you want me to stay or give you space?" She looked at me for a long time. Stay. So I stayed. We swept the floor. That was all. The next morning, Bryce arrived. I knew who he was before Hannah introduced him because Maisie had his eyes. He wore expensive casual clothes, drove a new black SUV, and walked into the office with the confident familiarity of someone who believed history gave him access. Hannah. Her shoulders tightened. Bryce. He looked at me. Employee? Luke runs service. I noticed the wording. Not my employee. Not a mechanic. Luke runs service. Bryce nodded as if filing me away. Then he placed a folder on the counter. I heard about the shutdown. From who? Small town. Atlanta isn't. He ignored that. I can clear the equipment note. The room went still. Hannah didn't touch the folder. What do you want? Want 40%. I almost laughed. Hannah didn't. Bryce continued. I put money into this place when we were married. You know that. You got every dollar back in the divorce. I'm not talking about the past. I'm talking about the future. You need capital. I have it. Maisie needs stability. There it was. Not money, leverage. Hannah's expression became flat. Don't use her. I'm thinking about her. So am I. Every day. He slid the folder closer. Read it. That's all. He left without raising his voice. That somehow made me dislike him more. Hannah stared at the folder. I said nothing. Finally, she looked at me. You're being very quiet. You didn't ask. What do you think? I chose my words carefully. I think 40% is expensive money. That's it? I think you already know what you think. She looked almost irritated. 3 months ago, you would have given me a 12-step plan. 3 months ago, I was an idiot. Her mouth moved. Not quite a smile. Then my phone rang. The screen showed a Charlotte number I recognized. Hannah saw my face. Take it. I stepped outside. It was my old regional manager. The service director who had pushed the transmission replacement was gone after an internal audit. Several customer complaints had surfaced. The company was rebuilding the department. They wanted me back. Not as assistant manager. Service director, $98,000 a year, benefits, signing bonus. I listened. I asked for 3 days. When I walked back inside, Hannah was reading Bryce's offer. Everything okay? She asked. Yeah. It wasn't a lie, but it wasn't the truth either. That mistake cost me. The electrician cleared the shop Friday afternoon. We reopened Saturday morning and worked through the backlog. I told myself I would tell Hannah about Charlotte after we survived the weekend. Then after Monday. Then after the lender meeting Tuesday. The lender meeting went badly. Revenue was up 31% from spring, but the fire expense had cut the cash reserve too low. Hannah needed additional collateral or a larger down payment to refinance the equipment. She had 21 days. That afternoon, Bryce called again. That evening, Charlotte emailed a formal offer. And at 6:20, Hannah walked into the office while the offer was open on my laptop. She stopped. I knew immediately. You were going to tell me, she said. Yes. When? Tonight. That sounds convenient. Hannah, 98,000? I closed the laptop. I haven't accepted. But you asked for time. Yes. Well, I'm trying to figure out whether this shop exists next month. That's exactly why I didn't want to drop it on you in the middle of everything. She laughed once, with no humor in it. You didn't want to drop it on me. I was trying not to make your crisis about me. No. You were deciding what I could handle. That stopped me. She was right enough to make me defensive. I needed time to think. Then say that. I'm saying it now. Because I saw the screen. We stared at each other. Every good thing we had built for months seemed suddenly balanced on the wrong sentence. Hannah looked away first. You should take it. That's not your decision. No, it's yours. But don't stay here because you feel sorry for me. I don't. Don't stay because Maisie likes you. I wouldn't. And don't stay because you think if you leave, the shop fails. My voice sharpened. You don't get to tell me why I stay any more than I get to tell you how to save this place. She went quiet. I could see the words land. Neither of us apologized. Not then. I packed my laptop and left. The next morning, I drove to Charlotte and heard the offer in person. On the drive back to Hendersonville, I kept expecting the decision to become obvious. It didn't. Then I realized why. I was asking the wrong question. Which job was better? Charlotte, easily. Which life did I want? That answer was harder because it involved things no salary sheet could measure. A 7-year-old who charged imaginary money for lug nuts. A woman who could diagnose a parasitic battery draw in 20 minutes and still forget where she left her coffee. A 2-bay shop that smelled like rubber, old concrete, and effort. But wanting that life did not mean I was entitled to it. That was the part the old version of me would have missed. That evening, I called Hannah. She answered on the 4th ring. Hey. I'm sorry I didn't tell you immediately. Silence. I wasn't trying to protect you, I said. I was protecting myself from having to admit I had a choice. Another silence. Then she asked, Do you? Yeah. What are you going to do? I don't know yet. That's honest, I'm working on it. A faint exhale. Then she said, I'm sorry I told you to take it. Why? Because I was protecting myself from hearing that you might. There it was. Not a confession. Something more useful. Truth. I returned to work the next morning. We did not discuss Charlotte again. We discussed the shop. 21 days. $28,400. Bryce's 40% offer sat unopened in Hannah's desk. The refinance gap was $12,000. And behind the building, under a canvas cover, sat Daniel Reed's 1977 Ford F-100. I did not mention it. Hannah did. At 5:45 on Thursday, she came into the bay holding the truck keys. I had it appraised last year. I looked at her. 18,000 as is, maybe more now. You don't have to sell it, I know, if you're doing this because I... She raised a hand. Don't. I stopped. She looked toward the back lot. My father kept saying he was going to finish that truck when things slowed down. Things never slowed down. She swallowed. After he died, I turned it into a monument. That's not what he wanted. What did he want? To drive it. Then maybe we should make it drive. She looked at me like I had missed the point. Luke, I have 20 days. The engine's already rebuilt. How do you know? I looked under the cover. You said you were learning not to push. I didn't touch anything. That earned me a look. I continued. Engines in. Transmissions mounted. Wiring needs finishing. Brakes need plumbing. Interior's ugly. Paint's decent enough if you like scars. He did. So do I. She stared at the keys. What are you suggesting? Get it running, clean it. Sell it as a running project instead of a dead one. How long? If Tyler helps and we work nights? 10 days. Maisie will hate it. Maybe ask her? Hannah did. Maisie cried. Not dramatically. Quiet tears that made everyone in the room feel helpless. Then she asked if Grandpa had ever driven it with the new engine. Hannah said no. Maisie wiped her face. Then we should make it run first. That was the vote. For 9 nights, Reed Auto stayed lit past midnight. Tyler handled brake lines. I finished the wiring harness and chased a grounding problem that nearly ended my sanity. Hannah rebuilt the carburetor herself at the office counter under a desk lamp, while Maisie slept on the vinyl bench, the same place she had been sleeping the day I first walked in. On the 10th night, at 11:43 p.m., the Ford started. Not smoothly, not gracefully. It coughed, shook, spat black smoke, died once, then turned over again. And suddenly the old shop filled with the deep, uneven sound of a V8 that had been silent for 6 years. Hannah stood beside the open hood with both hands over her mouth. Maisie screamed. Tyler threw both arms up. I watched Hannah. Tears ran down her face, but she was smiling. She looked at the photograph of her father above the parts shelf. Then she looked at me. Don't say anything. I wasn't going to. You have a face. I always have a face. That one is saying something. It's saying your timing is still 2 degrees off. She laughed through the tears. Then she hit me in the shoulder with a shop rag. We sold the truck 5 days later to a retired contractor named Warren Bell, who promised to keep the faded red paint exactly as it was. That morning, Hannah texted Bryce 2 words. No deal. He paid $26,000. Hannah made the refinance down payment. The equipment lender restructured the note. Reed Auto kept its lifts. The morning the paperwork cleared, Hannah walked into the shop holding the signed documents. Tyler hugged her without warning. Maisie danced around the office. I stood near the alignment rack and felt a pressure leave my chest that I had been carrying for months. Hannah came toward me. "You didn't save the shop," she said. I smiled. "Good morning to you too. I'm serious. I know. My dad's truck did. You made that decision. Tyler did the brake lines. He won't let us forget." Maisie cast the deciding vote. "She'll put it on her resume. And you—" She stopped. "I what?" "You stayed." The word hung there. Stayed. Not rescued. Not fixed. Stayed. I looked at her. "I need to tell you something." Her expression changed. "Charlotte?" I nodded. "I turned it down yesterday." She inhaled. I held up a hand. "Before you say anything, I did not turn it down for you." Something flickered in her eyes. I continued. "I turned it down because I don't want that job. I spent 8 years climbing toward that office, and when I finally stood in it, I realized I missed this floor. I tapped the concrete with my boot. I miss customers I know by name. I miss fixing things instead of selling numbers. I miss Tyler stealing my 10mm sockets and pretending he doesn't." "From the other bay," Tyler said. "I can hear you." "Good." Hannah smiled. I looked back at her. "And yes, I would miss you. A lot. But that's not why I chose the job. I need you to know the difference." She was quiet for a long time. Then she said, "I do. I should have stopped there." Instead, months of restraint finally ran out. "I also need to know if the part where I'd miss you is a problem." Her eyes lifted to mine. "What exactly are you asking? I'm trying very hard not to turn it into a flowchart." "That's growth." "Hannah." She waited. "I want to take you to dinner. We've had dinner. With Tyler. True, and Maisie. She eats, I've noticed. And your mother. My mother likes dinner." I stepped closer. "I want to take you to dinner where nobody discusses brake rotors, payroll, your ex-husband, my old job, equipment financing, or whether Maisie can have soda." Hannah looked at me for so long I started to feel 17. Then she said, "That sounds impractical. Extremely. One dinner?" "One. And if it's terrible, we go back to work Monday. And if it isn't, I'm trying not to diagnose that far ahead." Her smile came slowly. "Saturday. 7. Okay. Luke? Yeah? The husband position is still closed." I laughed. "Good. I didn't apply for it. Our first date was not cinematic. The restaurant lost our reservation. It rained. Hannah got a call from her mother because Maisie refused to go to sleep until she knew whether her mother was having fun. Then my truck battery died in the parking lot. Hannah stood under an umbrella while I stared at the dead battery. "You own a repair shop," she said. "I work at one. You run service, apparently badly." She laughed so hard she had to lean against the truck. That was when I kissed her. Not because the timing was perfect, because it wasn't. I asked first, she said yes. And afterward, we still had to jumpstart my truck. That mattered. Real life did not disappear because we finally admitted something. Monday still came. Customers still called. Maisie still had school. The shop still had bills. We decided early that work could not become a place where our relationship settled arguments for us. At the shop, Hannah owned the business. I ran service. If we disagreed like professionals. At home, or dinner, or wherever we were trying to learn how to be two people instead of co-workers, we were not allowed to pull rank from the garage. We failed at that rule twice in the first month. The second time ended with Hannah pointing a fork at me and saying, "You are using service manager voice at the dinner table." I said, "I do not have a service manager voice." Maisie, without looking up from her macaroni, said, "You do." I surrendered. 6 months later, I moved into Hannah's house. Not because her water heater broke, though it did break that week. Not because Maisie asked, though she had been asking for months. Not because it saved money, though it did. We did it because by then we had learned the difference between convenience and choice. I kept my apartment through the end of the lease anyway, Hannah insisted. So neither of us can pretend you got trapped by a plumbing emergency, she said. I loved her for that. The following fall, on a cool Saturday after the safety clinic, I found Hannah behind the shop, standing in the empty patch where her father's Ford had once sat. Warren Bell had driven it by that morning. Same faded paint, same dents, running beautifully. He let Hannah drive it around the block. When she came back, she cried for 5 minutes and then yelled at me because I had adjusted the passenger mirror. Now, hours later, the gravel space was empty again. You okay? I asked. Yeah. She leaned against me. Dad would have liked you. You think? He would have made you prove it for about 6 years. Reasonable. He didn't trust dealership people. Smart man. She laughed. Then she turned toward me. You know, Maisie's question last year was wildly inappropriate. Which one? She narrowed her eyes. I smiled. Oh. That one. She has no boundaries. Genetic? Careful. I reached into my jacket pocket. Hannah saw the movement and immediately stepped back. Luke. I know. Luke. This is not a rescue plan. Her eyes filled before I even had the ring out. It's not because the shop needs anything. It's not because Maisie needs anything. It's not because I need to be necessary. I held the ring between us, but I didn't kneel yet. I'm asking because I like the life we choose on ordinary Mondays. I like arguing about schedules. I like your terrible early morning music rules. I like that you tell me when I'm managing instead of listening. I like that you don't need me to fix you. She covered her mouth. And I love you. Then I knelt. Hannah Reed, you once told me you needed a husband, not an employee. She laughed through tears. That was a joke. I know, I'm applying anyway. She shook her head. Your resume is questionable, strong references. Who? Maisie. Maybe Tyler. Tyler would sabotage you. Probably. She was crying harder now. I stopped smiling long enough to ask the only part that mattered. Will you marry me? Yes. No hesitation. No dramatic pause. Just yes. Then she pulled me up and kissed me before I could put the ring on correctly. 3 months later, nothing about the shop looked magically transformed. That's important. The floor was still stained. The air conditioner still rattled. The phone still rang when both hands were full. Customers still showed up 5 minutes before closing and said, "This should be quick." Life did not become easy because we got engaged. It became shared in a healthier way. Hannah hired a part-time office coordinator instead of trying to do everything herself. I stopped answering work messages during dinner unless something was actually urgent. Maisie got older, louder, and better at spotting when adults were pretending not to be upset. Tyler finally bought his own 10mm sockets. Because the truth is, I applied for a job at a single mom's auto shop, believing I knew exactly what I was good at, fixing things. I was wrong. The best thing I learned there was that people are not repairs. Love is not a service order. You don't earn permanence by making yourself indispensable, and you don't protect independence by refusing every hand that reaches toward you. Sometimes you help. Sometimes you listen. Sometimes you stay. And sometimes the person who tells you, on the worst day of her week, I need a husband, not an employee, turns out not to need either one in the way she thought. She needed a team. She built one. She needed a business that could stand without fear. She rebuilt one. And eventually, when neither of us needed the other to save anything, we chose each other anyway. If this story stayed with you, tell me what you think matters more in a relationship: being needed or being chosen. And if you'd like to hear another story about ordinary people finding their way to something worth keeping, subscribe and stay with me for the next one.